If there is one thing that I love about making theory videos, it's the part where I get to decipher symbols. Especially if there's that possibility that I'm just looking way too deep into it and it's actually way simple. But hey, it's still fun to do. And today we are going to take a quick look at this flipped star from Bendy and the Ink Machine. First, some context. Bendy is a cartoon devil from the early to mid 20th century rubber hose era of cartoons. In the cartoons, he was always a mischievous but otherwise happy little devil, and Alice Angel was his companion. Curiously, a lot of cartoons from that era were very religiously inclined or were occult in some way or another. I think that will be a video on its own later. Now, in the game, decades later, the animation studio is abandoned, and a dark secret is being revealed. Apparently, an actual demon, perhaps even Satan himself, was summoned and possessed the ink that was used in the animation process. The basic idea is, a deal was made with the devil to make animating faster through processed ink made by the ink machine. And now, decades later, the devil wants his dues. Throughout the studio, you occasionally see these flipped pentagrams, which may have been used to summon the devil, which is now taking the form of an ink-drenched Bendy. Perhaps a conglomeration of ink from the ink machine, Bendy merchandise as seen throughout the game, and the souls he has already taken. At one point, you get kidnapped and you wake up in the middle of this pentagram. You find out that the kidnapper intended to sacrifice you to the demon which is currently possessing the ink in the shape of Bendy. And in this pentagram room, there are also 3 chairs and 3 coffins. But what then of the pentagram itself? What's its deal? What are these other symbols around it? What does it all mean? Well, first off, we should cover the base, the pentagram itself. Being a basic shape means it's been used throughout many cultures and religions throughout history. For instance, the earliest known use of a pentagram was as a lologram, a sort of early letter or hieroglyph by the ancient Sumerians. It meant the word ub, meaning corner or angle, a nook, if you will. Eventually, the ancient Greeks picked up the shape and called it a pentamikos, meaning 5 corners, and it was used to symbolize the seeds of Kronos, the Greek personification of time, meaning the pentagram symbolizes the beginning of time, the beginning of the universe. We're getting a bit closer to the modern interpretation now. Then later, early Christians used the pentagram to symbolize the 5 senses as well as the 5 wounds of Christ, 1 on each limb and 1 from a spear on the side. Wearing a pentagram necklace or engraving pentagrams onto shields or armor at the time was equivalent to Christians today wearing cross necklaces. It symbolizes their faith and devotion. Then, in the late 1400s, this began to change. Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa, among many others, began using the symbol as a base for magic. As to them, it represented the 5 base elements of earth, fire, water, air, and spirit, each of which have their own symbols that will help us while deciphering Bendy's pentagram. These esoteric hermetics frequently used pentagrams for all sorts of rituals, and by the mid-1800s, the distinction between the upright pentagram and the flipped pentagram was made. When upright, it symbolizes holy power. With a single point upwards, it depicts a spirit presiding over the 4 elements of matter. It is a good, heavenly spirit. But when flipped 180 degrees, the spirit point is downwards, and now symbolizes the evil spirits, demons and such. Pentagrams became a symbol for Wiccans shortly after, a belief that draws upon a diverse set of ancient pagan and 20th century motifs. And flipped pentagrams with a goat head inside became the religious symbol for the Church of Satan, which was founded in 1966 to mass media hysteria. During the 20th century, the vast majority of the Western world was Christian or Catholic in some form or another, and this was also during the major media boom of the 20th century. Movies and cartoons were becoming very popular. And what's a good way to scare people who are devout to their religion? Confront them with their religious enemy. Horror movies would often depict Satan or demons or evil magic of some form frequently, and after the news of the Church of Satan being founded came out, this only rose. Flipped pentagrams were an easy way to get these religious people to immediately feel a negative emotion. You could have a monster movie with a big bad monster, Or you could make said monster summoned via a pentagram with pentagrams all over its face, and suddenly it's way scarier to the Christian viewer. So, Hollywood rolled with it, and now pentagrams are widely believed to be satanic in origin, rather than also being used by Wiccans, Hermetics, various African beliefs, ancient Greeks, and even early Christians as a symbol to their devotion to Jesus. Funny how media has so much control over a population's feelings and beliefs. Yeah, funny.
And while we're at it, sorry for butting in like this, inverted crosses are the same thing. They actually aren't satanic at all outside the minds of Hot Topic designers and black metal bands trying to be edgy. The inverted cross actually comes from a Catholic tradition, where St. Peter didn't want to be crucified in the same way of Jesus because he felt he was unworthy. So his final wish was to be crucified upside down. So good job, edgy emos. I didn't realize you were all so devout to your Catholicism. Kudos to you.
Anyway, so that's the pentagram, and here is Bendy's again, painted with the same ink that Bendy is made of, which, come to think of it, is kinda like pentagrams painted with blood, which is another sort of Hollywood depiction of what Satanists do. Which reminds me, I should cover some bases real quick. Some of my deciphering from here on is based on actual beliefs held by various religious groups, and the other bits are just using logic leaps with the Hollywoodization of magic circles in mind. There is a good chance that the devs of this game didn't actually research pentagrams all that much, and just made some of the stuff up, similar to how many Hollywood movies do it. But they also might have done at least a little bit of research, and that's what I'm hoping to be the case. Anyway, on with the deciphering. Outside of it being a flipped pentagram, what gets really cool and interesting is the placement of the extra spirit symbol, which is this circle. It's put right in between the fire and water points on the pentagram. Why does that matter? Well, when drawing a pentagram, the direction you draw each line will either increase or decrease the powers of the elements each line symbolizes. It's called banishing or invoking. Now, since we didn't see the lines actually being drawn, we could assume that these symbols are here to point us in the right direction. Some pentagrams would be drawn with extra symbols within the circle but outside of the star, as a means to specify what it is you are trying to accomplish with it. In this case, the spirit symbol is between fire and water, and interestingly, old-fashioned ink is made by burning carbon over a fire and mixing that blackened carbon with water. So, spirit being between the fire and water points on this ink pentagram seems to say ink, perhaps as instructions to the demon to possess nearby ink, or as a means of summoning an ink demon specifically, if that's a thing in this world. And then there is this extra earth symbol in between the air and spirit points, which confused me, and so this might be a stretch, but here it goes. There are, of course, many interpretations of pentagrams. Even among the magically inclined of today, there are various beliefs. But the one thing that unites many of them is that the most common pentagram is the lesser earth banishing pentagram. And there are 4 distinct beliefs and reasonings as to why that is, one of which is almost a total flip from the one I'm going to explain. But I'm only going to explain the one that happens to help us with deciphering Bendy's pentagram. Earth is the lowliest of the 5 elements. It's dirt, but it's also what makes up most of the materials we use, like metals and gold, and thus, Earth is seen as the materialistic element. There is greed and sin in there, especially when we get into biblical contexts. Humans were created from the dust of the earth, and humans are full of sin. Plus, Satan and his demons were thrown to the earth. Hellfire of sulfur and brimstone is said to be within it, and so on top of it being the lowliest of the elements, it is also said to be the most evil, at least in certain contexts. So banishing it, albeit slightly, helps balance out the entire pentagram, because the forces of Earth are extra powerful compared to the other elemental powers, because it resonates with wickedness. So why then put an extra Earth symbol in your pentagram? Well, to strengthen Earth's powers, including its wicked ones. This flipped pentagram is already evil in nature, and adding this makes it even more so. Makes it more likely to summon an evil spirit. But why between the air and spirit points? Well, I'm not positive, but the best I can come up with is that the air is the opposite to Earth. It's the highest of the 4 bases. So adding Earth next to it counteracts it, and being beside the spirit point may point towards the idea of an earthly spirit as opposed to a heavenly one. But what then of all these extra scratches and lines? Well, many of them I am unsure if they actually affect the meaning. Some of these extra scratches and lines definitely seem accidental or are just there because the pentagram got damaged through age. But a few of these are definitely distinct and definitely put there for a reason. Like this thick line at the top, connecting the earth and fire points. And, well, I already mentioned hellfire and sulfur and brimstone once. This further solidifies that connection. And then these 4 horizontal lines on the bottom point definitely seem like they are there on purpose too. I'm not sure what they would mean exactly, but they are on the spirit point. Being a flipped pentagram, it signifies a more evil spirit, one from the underworld. Perhaps the extra lines are there to signify the summoning of a more powerful evil spirit, one that is of higher rank, or from a lower circle of hell. Or it is a sort of underline to make sure everyone involved is aware that this is indeed the bottom of the pentagram. The spirit point is down. This isn't the bottom. This isn't the bottom. This is the bottom. I mean, overall, Bendy is a very silly game. I can easily see that logic. So overall, I believe this pentagram was used to summon a powerful demon and commanded it to possess ink. I mean, clearly that's what actually ended up happening, so yeah, good job, game. You did good with this. Or maybe I'm entirely wrong. Meh. Either way, this was fun to theorize about, and I look forward to deciphering even more symbols. So thank you so much for watching. Here are some other videos that you may enjoy, and until next time, please remember to never stop using your noggin. If there is one thing that I love about making theory videos, it's the part where I get to decipher symbols. Especially if there's that possibility that I'm just looking way too deep into it and it's actually way simple. But hey, it's still fun to do. And today we are going to take a quick look at this flipped we're very religiously inclined, or we're occult in some way or another. I think that will be a video on its own later. Now, in the game, decades later, the animation studio is abandoned, and a dark secret is being revealed. Apparently, an actual demon, perhaps even Satan himself, was summoned and possessed the ink that was used in the anime, which is now taking the form of an ink-drenched Bendy. Perhaps a conglomeration of ink from the ink machine, Bendy merchandise as seen throughout the game, and the souls he has already taken. At one point you get kidnapped and you wake up in the middle of this pentagram. You find out that the kidnapper intended to sacrifice you to the demon animation process. The basic idea is, a deal was made with the devil to make animating faster through processed ink made by the ink machine. And now, decades later, the devil wants his dues. Throughout the studio, you occasionally see these flipped pentagrams, which may have been used to summon the devil from Bendy and the ink machine. First, some context. Bendy is a cartoon devil from the early to mid-20th century rubber hose era of cartoons. In the cartoons, he was always a mischievous but otherwise happy little devil, and Alice Angel was his companion. Curiously, a lot of cartoons from that era